What's up everybody, it's Eric with Chaotic Goods, and today's video I'm going to talk about the must-have Pantheon cards if you are running the Fire element. Now I did a wind list, and this is going to be the Fire list, and after this will be Water. But Fire is my personal favorite element, but the problem is in a singleton format such as Pantheon, it's really hard to find those explosive cards for your deck that aren't class bonus, but you still want to have them if you're running that Fire element. Now, I tried my best to find the cards that I think are going to absolutely change the deck in the way that it works within your Pantheon deck, while still removing that class bonus from most of these cards. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to include those generic Fire cards such as Creative Shock or Increasing Danger. Those are absolutely must-haves that you should be running no matter what. The 10 cards in this list, or 11, 2 of them share a slot, are very impactful cards that I think you should include most of them in your deck. There are a few that I would say are absolute 100% put in your deck if you're running Fire, but some of them are a little bit situational, so you may want to take them out. You may want to replace them with something else. I'm not going to include any honorable mentions in this list like I did in my Wind list, because Fire has a lot of class bonus cards, so it was really hard for me to narrow down this list as just generic good Fire cards. I do want to give a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, which is TCG Architect. I will have a link down in the description below of a written version of this video if you want to check that out. But on their website, they have a deck builder. They feature a bunch of other Grand Archive creators. They also have content for tournament results, and they feature other TCGs such as Gundam, which I also play. So huge shout out to them. Check them out in the link below, as you can find this video on their website and the written article as well. So with all that out of the way, let's get started with number one. The number one is a card that was actually in the Team Trading Post Pantheon video that they put out last week at time of recording this. And this is Infernal Vessel. Infernal Vessel is a Regalia card. I didn't include any Regalia card in my Wind list, but this one, I really liked it as it's one of those things that can surprise a lot of people, but it can also just be a dead card depending on what you're playing against. Now, Infernal Vessel is a Regalia card, which may not be something you want to put in your deck because that is taking up a precious material deck slot, but this card, depending on some matchups, can absolutely just change up the game. Now, it is a zero-cost Regalia that says if a player would recover an amount, they recover X instead, where X is that amount minus 3. And if a player would recover 0 or less, they don't recover. This is really good, but again, extremely situational. Recovery is very strong, but not a lot of decks just run Recover. This is also one of those things where you could run Morrigan Soul Guide instead, where just as players can't recover HP. This is taking up a material deck slot, so you could run her, but maybe you don't want to run her and you'd rather run this. Recovery is extremely strong. I went against an Alice player and they were just obnoxiously recovering HP because that's just what she does with Umbra. And this would have made it to where instead of they were recovering like 6 and 9, they were recovering 3 and 6 instead, which is a game changer. So again, extremely situational card, but I do think into certain matchups such as mages or clerics, this will put a stop to their game plan where they are going to want to get rid of this card because they want to recover HP and stop you from winning the game. Now, next up on the list is Demolition. Demolition is a 3-cost fast speed action spell. And it does have a class bonus, so if you are mage, this class bonus does apply to you, but this card costs 1 less to activate. So it's a 2 instead of a 3, not a big deal. But the text of the card reads, deal 3 damage to target unit or siegeable domain. Now the problem here is it does say target, which means you cannot target your opponent's Pantheon barriers because they have that Omni Shroud. So we are able to still hit a unit, so a champion, an ally, and because it is fast speed, we can do it on the attack step or the damage step before that interaction occurs. And if you're playing against maybe a Tony or someone else who has a siegeable domain, you're able to just deal 4 damage to it, get it out of the way, and that's fantastic. So it's a card that I think has a lot of value, even if it is just doing 3 damage to target unit. Yeah, you're probably not going to run into a lot of situations where you're going against a siegeable domain, but there are some decks out there that will just run a 1 of siegeable domain, or you're playing against Tony where they have a ton of siegeable domains and you're just like, you know what, 4 damage to it, get it out of the way, and life just is easier at that point. All right, so number 3 on my list is Forgelight Shieldmaiden. She is in my opinion, I think a must-have if you are running fire because 1, she's beautiful, and 2, her effect is just incredible. She is a 3-cost ally, guardian human with a 1/2 stat. Now, she has the foster ability, but the foster ability is not the class bonus ability. The foster is, on foster, draw 2 cards, discard 1. She's creative shock in the form of an ally. And early on, if you see Forgelight Shieldmaiden, it's great because your barrier is still up. You're most likely going to foster her, which is going to allow you to draw those 2 cards and discard the 1. Now, her class bonus ability is if you are a guardian, if a fire element card was discarded, put a buff counter on Forgelight Shieldmaiden. So that's just going to turn her into a 2/3 instead of a 1/2. But honestly, we don't care. We don't care about the class bonus. Literally just put her in fire. If you are running fire, Forgelight Shieldmaiden is an insane card because she's creative shock on an ally. Draw 2, discard 1. That's exactly what we want to do. In fire, we want to draw cards. We want to discard cards. Best card on the list, guarantee it. Now, next up on the list is an Exalted card. It is a 4-cost action mage spell at slow speed. Because it is Exalted, you do have to have an advanced element enabled in order to use it, but it reads destroy all allies. Plain and simple board wipe. We love board wipes in Pantheon. If you're going against a terrifying Tony deck, a terrifying Sylvie deck, maybe some sort of Lorraine allies deck, having just a, hey, let's burn it all, it's hard to beat. Just destroy all allies. Yes, it is at slow speed, so there is that interaction window for that your opponent. You can't do it at the end of a turn. You have to do it on your turn in order to do that. It is still such an impactful card, especially when there's, tons of token allies, there's buff counters on everything. Maybe someone is running the Greater Boon of Kanaloa and they have +1 on everything with Taunt or with Vigor Intercept. Boom, burn it all, move on. So next on the list is another personal favorite of mine because it's a great way to just remove the barriers super early if you want to be a bad guy. It is Pyroclastic Flow. It is a 4-cost action mage spell at slow speed that is deal 2 damage to all units. So early on in the game, if you see this, then you have unit, which is going to be each person's champion, and then if they have maybe a taunt or something or a foster unit or whatever the case may be, as long as there's more than 1 unit on the field, you're just taking 2 damage and multiplying it by each unit. So somebody has two allies and then their champion on the field. That's 3 instances of 2 instantly killing their barrier. I had this happen to me. We were going against a Kong Ming player, and she dropped this, and suddenly the barriers that we were kind of hiding behind were gone on like turn 3, and it's just like, whoa, hold up, like that's kind of crazy. And I was like, okay, this card has insane value because yes, early on you can just pop everybody's barrier and get the game just immediately going, or once the barriers are down and you get into the late game, doing 2 damage to all units is very good. Yes, you're hitting yourself at that point, which may not be something that you want to do, and you may not want to get rid of your barrier, but 2 damage to all units is a lot of damage, especially when it's token spam deck where a lot of that life stat is just 1, like slimes or automatons or the voracious scout. I'm pretty sure I said that wrong, but the scout allies that CL creates, just 2 damage to everything. Board wipe. It's a smaller board wipe than Lavastorm, but it is still very impactful because it's 4 cost and you don't need the Exalted element in order to play it. This one is going along with that annoying thing that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Recovery. Recovery is so obnoxious in Pantheon, and a lot of decks don't run it, but we are able to tech certain cards that allow us to recover. And this one is Restorative Flame. It's a 2-cost fast speed action cleric spell. It says banish up to 3 fire element cards from your graveyard. For each card banished this way, recover 2. So at most, you are going to recover 6, which is not a lot of HP, but it can be absolutely game changing. Because this is a fast speed, if someone is going in for the kill on you, they may not calculate the fact that you can recover 6 HP. And yes, they may be able to interact with it to just like stop the spell in its tracks. Being able to, you know, hide behind the Restorative Flame in your hand, because it is only a 2 cost, is a pretty big deal. Yes, it is a dead card if there's graveyard hate or something like that, but having a 2 cost recover 6 is huge and can absolutely swing the pace of the game, because again, maybe your opponent doesn't calculate it. You're just able to recover 6 by banishing 3 fire cards from your deck. It's really, really strong. This next slot is 2 cards. I know I said 10, but this is actually 11 cards in the list. And because these are essentially the same thing, I am just keeping them in the same sort of slot instead of saying, hey, here's this number and then this number. The first one is Spurn to Ash. If you've played Fire, you're probably familiar with this card. It is a 3 cost slow action spell that says destroy target regalia with memory cost 1 or less. We want to get rid of people's regalia. Sometimes regalia is just really, really obnoxious and we don't want it on the board. So we're simply just gonna say, hey, I'm gonna pay 3, we're gonna destroy that. You know, maybe it's a sword, maybe it's Polaris. It could be anything, right? And we just wanna get rid of it. Spurn to Ash is a great way to do that. We also have the other option, which is Reduce to Ash. Now, Reduce to Ash is a 3 cost fast action mage spell that says destroy target item or weapon with a memory cost of 0 or a reserve cost of 4 or less. So this is a lot more impactful than Reduce to Ash. We can, you know, run them both. We can run one or the other. They're very interchangeable, as, you know, maybe we want Reduce to Ash to destroy something with a reserve cost 4 or less because it is target item or weapon. There's a lot of things that we would want to get rid of with that. Maybe someone has a super obnoxious accessory on the board that comes from the main deck, or maybe there's a bullet or something that you want to ruin a Diana player's life with. You can just say, hey, Reduce to Ash it, and then with the other one, you can just say, hey, Spurn to Ash, and I'm just going to destroy this sword or something you have. They're really good cards, and I think you should probably have one or the other in your list if you are running Fire, because there's probably always a situation where one of these 2 cards will have an impact on the game. Now, this one is probably one that you could take out if you are like a mage or a cleric player, because it's not going to be super impactful to you, but it is Oppressive Presence. I really like this card. I think in ally heavy situation decks, it is extremely good. And what it is a 2 cost action warrior skill at a fast speed. And there's a lot of text here, so bear with me. And this says activate this card only during an opponent's recollection phase. You have 3 opponents, time it wisely. Until the end of turn, players can't declare attacks with allies unless they pay X for each attack declaration, where X is the highest power among fire element allies you control. So if you are playing a heavy fire ally deck and you want to make sure that your opponents are not going to swing into you for potentially a kill, you know, this is kind of like a cracked tariff ring, so to speak. You're buying yourself a turn, assuming you have that ally on the board, which is really, really, really important. You know, we want to survive. It's a very situational card, but I do think that it buys you extra time, and I think it's very important to have that interaction to be like, no, you're not going to swing into me unless you pay X. Fire is all about just dealing pot shot damage and chipping away at your opponents. And this card is a great way to do that without it being a class bonus restriction. And that is Embercrypt Burn. It is a 2 cost action cleric spell at fast speed that says banish target card from a graveyard, then deal 2 damage to each champion. Now, the key word here is target card from a graveyard. It is not yours. We're not getting rid of one of ours. We can if we wanted to. But if our opponent put a card into their graveyard that we don't want them to get back, maybe it's an ultimate spell, maybe it's a liminal guide, maybe it's some sort of float and we just want to be petty about it, we can say, hey, I'm going to banish that and everybody's going to take 2. Yeah, taking 2 damage to yourself isn't ideal, but hey, maybe your barrier's still up and you can pop your own barrier by banishing a card from target opponent's graveyard. It's a really good way to banish something that you don't want your opponent to have in their graveyard, and then simultaneously just doing an instance of 2 damage to everybody. I like it. I think it's a good card, and the best part about it is it's 2 cost, and it's not a class restriction like most spells that would be this obnoxious. Last card on my list is one of my personal favorites, similar to Forgelight Maiden. I think if you're running fire, you put this card in your deck no matter what, because there are a lot of good things about it. That card is Tenderheart Guard. She is a 2-cost ally guardian human with 1/3 stats. She reads, each player may discard a card, and each player that does draws a card in their memory, and then you gain Crowd's Favor status. Now, Crowd's Favor is super OP. Like, having each person pay 1 to interact with you it's a huge boon, and you want the Crowd's Favor status. So if you are running fire, put Tenderheart Guard into your deck. You want her, you want other ways to gain Crowd's Favor. She right now is the only one that is the fire element specific Crowd's Favor, and the fact that there's no class bonus or anything to activate her. She's a 2-cost 1/3, so she's like okay stat wise, and she's cheap. Everybody discards a card, everybody draws a card, you get Crowd's Favor. I can't name a more ideal card over Forgelight. Like these two, Forgelight Shieldmaiden and Tenderheart Guard are probably equal on the list. The only upside to Forgelight is it's draw 2, discard 1 only for yourself, and Tenderheart Guard is everybody draws and discards, you get Crowd's Favor. So if you got anything from this list, at least put those 2 cards in your deck, because they are fantastic and you won't regret having them if you are running fire. But that's all I have for you. Those are my 10, 11 cards that I think everybody should be running in Pantheon when they have the fire element enabled, whether it is their spirit or their boon. These are just fantastic cards to run. Now, I want to thank you all for watching. Again, shout out to TCG Architect for allowing me to put these videos on their site and create little articles for those of you who want to read instead of watch these videos. I will be doing a water list here in the next couple of weeks, and then after that I'm going to transition into class bonus specific cards. If you have any ideas, let me know down in the comments below. But thanks so much for stopping by. I hope to see you again.